Anurag, what is your modus operandi in these in these things? While you're seeing a problem out there, be it part of your company or in previously in fellowship also you've seen a number of problems. What is your approach in selecting? Okay, this is the problem that I do address because this is where I can sort of contribute. I mean, I think this is something that every fellow, not just in YFI fellowship, any development sector person who's out on the ground is facing, right? How to how to choose a problem, how to approach in solving that problem. What are your thoughts on that? I just like want to hear your experience around that.
Uh, Thank you, Gautam, for that question. Um,
Yeah.
Interestingly, when I look at it retrospectively, I don't think I chose to work in that particular on that particular topic or theme, thinking that I can contribute to it in some way. I think it had more to do with this feeling that okay, it looks like a logically feasible theme to work in the context of my particular project with millets. I chose it because if we are supposed to be doing sustainable agriculture, um, we are also forced to look at what is natural for that system of agriculture. In this case, millets played an interesting role because even if you don't put in any kind of fertilizer or any chemical input, it grows very spontaneously in that region.
Okay.
And and on the other hand, the grain itself, if you may have heard like finger millet or whatever, there are so many different millet grains out there in the market. They are earning a lot of premium on that particular grain in the market, especially in tier 1 cities.
Right.
Usually it is the health conscious crowd.
Hmm.
So my approach to solving this problem was looking at it from a market perspective.
Okay.
Uh, because on one hand we would be essentially making the farmers adopt a crop that is sustainable, but on the other hand the produce itself is able to earn a good premium in the market. So it's an opportunity to incentivize sustainable agriculture. I think that was my justification for getting into it. As for implementing the project, actually, I found myself talking a lot to people, as Nikhil had rightly suggested that involvement with the community is very important when you're working in this sector. And
Right.
the stories that they told played a huge role in how I approached this project. My
Okay.
role as a fellow for the first 6 months was only and only collecting stories,
Right.
talking
Right.
to people of various age groups, understanding what they thought about millets, and carefully documenting it uh, before getting into the project itself.
Got it. Okay.
So, I mean, yeah, it has been bringing the project together has been a very people centric endeavor
Hmm.
where when I listened to their stories, they were equally open to receiving stories from me as well about the possibility and potential of this millet. And I
Okay.
think that's
Okay.
I approached my fellowship.
Got it. Got it. I mean, and I completely agree with this as well because listening. I mean, what I'm understanding here is listening as a skill is a very underrated one, right? That's exactly what I think you were referring to.
Yeah.
Listening, not just to passively listen, but to actively listen and gain insights, right? In at least in business parlance, you ask, what is an insight? You
Yeah.
ask somebody a question why 6 times, you get into an insight.
Mm,
And that's something that we can implement elsewhere also in social sector also, where you
mm,
listen to somebody's experience and you ask, okay, why this is happening. Again you
mm,
ask why, again you ask, and at the end of it you get to that core problem which
mm.
you need to solve, right? I think, yeah, the great takeaway from that. Yeah. Yeah.
I think by the time you ask the sixth time why, you're probably sitting with a person in the village on a chai, because
Yes.
it tends to be a long conversation by then.
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
No,
Got it.
but that
Yeah.
that actually, I'd like to circle back to one more thing. Actually,
Yeah.
like you said, stories are they're very important overall to understanding, or basically, engaging with the community is a very uh, it's an essential thing as much as any of the other parts are. I think the issue with the development sector right now is currently the ones who are on field, the ones who are more tightly knit with their communities, are a lot more passion driven rather than, I'd say, systems or scientifically driven. As in, they don't. A lot of them don't have the capacity maybe to look at things from a more rational or more scientific perspective, but they have a lot of passion. And I'm talking, of course, about the smaller ones that are on there. The bigger ones, of course, have a lot of capacity to do this.
Got it. Understood. And in your mind, who would be the right stakeholder, in addressing this problem? I mean, in a fellowship, you are limited by your resources, you are limited by the number of the time period that you want to spend in an organization or in that location. Um, uh, but I mean, do you have any thoughts around what can be done about this?
I don't know. I think there are two, at least in my head,
Okay.
there's a little dichotomy
Yeah.
in the way that larger NGOs function and the way smaller NGOs function. I think smaller NGOs you can show a lot more holistic impact in the smaller areas that they're working in, and the larger ones tend mostly to work on larger projects in general, larger funding, and they tend to move on to the next one really quickly. Not really go back and monitor or go back and see if there's any positive impact if people are using the infrastructure that they've provided. So I think there are two sides to the coin. One is within the smaller NGOs, the on ground teams, the ones who are going and visiting, I think should be equally as involved in the decision making of projects. So in that way, you bring you know, both perspectives to the table, and the larger ones where you have smaller, like for example MSSRF, the NGO that I work with, they had a bunch of smaller offices scattered all across South India, and those
Yeah.
smaller offices had about maybe 5 to 10 people maximum in each of the offices, but they were mostly people who just ran back and forth and liaison between the NGO and the community itself. So having those people, I guess, work more closely with the project development or the project implementation in the sense of the back end work could provide a
Yeah.
better perspective. But I don't know that I can comment uh, too you know, too well on this.